Good afternoon, church. Today, we will be kind of wrapping up what we've been doing over the last couple of weeks, talking about ways to find and experience God in our life. But today I want to conclude us in a weird way. If you have a Bible, turn to Ephesians. We're going to be camping out there the entire class. And I want us to talk about this the way that not only should we try to listen into the words of God, but we should look around us to see the way that God is opening our eyes to things that are happening. We become so blind. We don't even mean to. We just lose sight of so much in our daily grind. We lose sight of what God's trying to show us and tell us and express to us. In Ephesians, Paul writes a lot about this. So we're going to be jumping through almost every chapter at some point in today's lesson. So get ready, get your flipping fingers ready. Let's start in Ephesians chapter 1, starting in verse 17. I pray that the God of King Jesus our Lord, the Father of glory, would give you, in your spirit, the gift of wisdom, of seeing things people can't normally see, because you are coming to know Him, and to have the eyes of your innermost self opened to God's light. See, what's incredible about this passage is that Paul is telling us that as we're transformed and as we know and experience Christ more, our perception of the world is going to change. Our vision is going to change. Our innermost thoughts are going to change. This gift that he's talking about is the gift of wisdom. Wisdom, the ability to see things that aren't easily seen. Sometimes in life, we find ourselves in situations in which God is so clearly trying to guide us into doing something, to acting in a certain way, or to helping a certain person. And if we don't have this wisdom, we miss it. Let me give you an example. A couple of weeks ago, I found myself in a very odd situation. I was walking down the road amidst the coronavirus pandemic, and I'm passing by an older lady. And I walked for a little bit longer, and there was just this nagging thought. I couldn't identify it. So I stopped, and I turned around, and I went and go talk to her. We ended up having a pretty intense conversation. I helped her out with some things she was doing, and I left. And it dawned on me as I was walking by that I would have missed that opportunity had God not been pulling the right string at the right time. And it got me thinking, I wonder how many times God is trying to pull different strings, and I'm so oblivious to it in my haste to walk to a new place or thinking about the problems of the world. Do I have that wisdom to be able to see those moments that most people can't see? And what's even more is, how do we get it? If we don't have that wisdom, that vision, how do we achieve it? How do we gather it? Well, Paul answers that too a couple of verses later. Let's skip down to chapter 2 of Ephesians. So where do you come into all this? Well, you were dead because of your sins and offenses. That was the road you used to travel, keeping in step with the world's present age. In step 2, with the ruler of the power of the air, the spirit, that is, even now at work among people whose entire lives consist of disobeying God. Actually, that's how all of us used to live. And that's how all of us used to behave, conditioned by our physical desires. We used to do what our flesh and our minds were urging us to do. What was the result? We too were subject to wrath in our natural state, just like everyone else. But when it comes to mercy, God is rich. He had such love for us that He took us at the very point where we were dead through our offenses and made us alive together with the King. Yes, you are saved by sheer grace. He raised us up with Him and made us sit with Him in the heavenly places in King Jesus. This was so that in the ages to come He could show just how unbelievably rich His grace is, the kindness He has shown us in King Jesus. God has made us what we are. God has created us in King Jesus for the good works that He has prepared ahead of time as the road we must travel. So how do we achieve this wisdom that allows us to see the things that most people miss? How is it that we can achieve this lens, this perspective that allows us to do all of the good works that God laid out before us as we walk this road? Well, he tells us here in Ephesians 2 that the only way we'll ever be able to achieve or unlock that wisdom is to remember our grace. See, a lot of people think that the wisdom that comes from these decisions is going to come by study. That you're going to be able to be more perceptive to the world around you by the more Bible facts you know and the more scripture you have memorized. And those things help. But we'll never be able to achieve it unless we understand two concepts, mercy and grace. See, we're going to be able to be more receptive to God when we realize that we have been only led here by God. We are only the people we are today because of God. Because of the grace that came when he saw us in sin dying and chose to try to help us out of it. If that is our focal point, if that is our lens, then we'll be able to pick up on the way God is leading us now. It's kind of like this. Let's say I'm in a rainforest and I get lost from the guide and I find myself in quicksand sinking. And all of a sudden the guide appears and he grabs me and he pulls me out of the quicksand that's sinking. And then he offers his hand and says, I can lead you out of the forest. Well, once I've grabbed his hand and he's started leading, how easy is it for me to allow him to continue to leading? In fact, if I'm allowing him to be my guide, I have to conscientiously choose to stop following him. Otherwise, he'll lead me right out. If we start at the point where we were sinking in the quicksand and never vary, and just continue walking with our guide, we'll find ourselves out of the forest that quick. But if we get distracted or lost, well, then we'll remain distracted or lost, and we could find ourselves back in the quicksand. So too it is with God's grace. Once we were lost, and now we're not, by God's grace, we were led out of the quicksand by God's grace. All we have to do is continue to walk with God's grace. But the minute we lose sight of that grace, the minute we lose sight of that mercy, the minute we lose sight of our guide, we may find ourselves slipping back in it. Being led by grace and being led by mercy is challenging. It's difficult. And it's hard. Because, well, we don't really like grace. And we don't really like mercy. We want to do it ourselves. We want to be the kings of our own life. But King Jesus rules us. And we have to succumb to that and give in to that. So God tells us that there's this wisdom that we can achieve. This wisdom that allows us to see the hurting of other people around us and opportunities to help the kingdom on earth. But we'll only be able to see it if we remain focusing on the grace God's given us and using it as our guide through this world. But there's one more thing that Paul says that I'd like to share today. Let's pick up in verse 12 of Ephesians chapter 2. Well, once upon a time you were separated from the king. You were detached from the community of Israel. You were foreigners to the covenants which contained the promise. There you were, in the world, with no hope and no God. But now in King Jesus you have been brought near in the King's blood. Yes, you, who used to be a long way away. He is our peace, you see. He has made the two to be one. He has pulled down the barrier. He has taken down the dividing wall that turns us into enemies of each other. He has done this in his flesh. This wisdom that can only be achieved by the following of grace and the following of King Jesus wherever he leads us will culminate in the destruction of hostility. It will culminate in peace with everyone. Jesus says you'll know a tree by its fruit. What are your fruits today? Are your fruits the peace that comes from the journey of grace and the wisdom of God? Or are the fruits that you're bearing more inclined with the children of wrath that we used to be? Those of us who are led by our physical desires. What is your fruit? What is my fruit? Church, let me be honest and open with you. You ready? I'm going to tell you more information than you'd like to probably to hear. My tree has a lot of fruit. And there are some fruits that are beautiful. There are some fruits that are delicious. And some fruits that are ripe. But there are some fruits that are rotten. And they still hang on my tree. There are still things in my life that I struggle with and still acts that I do that I'm ashamed of. There are still things I struggle with, temptations I deal with, and Satan who I constantly have to battle. And that's not going to go away. But neither is King Jesus. For by grace we are saved. not by works, so that no man should boast. For once upon a time I was a stranger to King Jesus. I was detached from Israel, but now I'm here. And though I still have a long way to go, and though my transformation is not complete, every step I take, being guided by grace, I find myself being exposed to wisdom. And this wisdom tells me one message: you are loved, you are worthy, and you are mine. Thank you, church, for taking a couple of minutes out of your day to study with me.